Hey everyone, thanks so much for coming back to the Live with Audacity podcast. I am so excited because today we have our first male guest on. I've been trying to get this guy on. He was the first person I reached out to when I decided to launch the podcast because I've been kind of following him. He's a great guy and he does real estate and he's so motivating. I love your videos, Avery. I'm just so excited to have you here today. Um, Real quick, a little bit about how we kind of sort of know each other. We grew up in the same area. I
Yep.
am several years older,
not
but
not too much.
but we have a lot of the same friends and groups, and all of our groups sort of just kind of overlap. So, and we know a ton of the same people. So that's how I started following you in the first place. Tell us a little bit about who you are and kind of how you got to the place that you're in right now.
Yeah, so obviously I want to start off by saying thank you for bringing me on the podcast. Right, I've been very excited about doing it. Live with Audacity. I just love the name of it. Like every time you hear somebody say that, it makes you feel like I need to be doing something great. Right. So first off,
Right?
I just want to thank you for bringing me on. A little bit about myself. So obviously my name is Avery Taylor from a really really small town called Kendleton, Texas. It's about 600 people according to census. So you can imagine how small that town is. You
Yeah,
basically
wow.
know everybody and everybody knows you as soon as you step off out of your driveway. So I grew up there, and to take it a step back a little further, I was adopted at a really, really young age. My mom actually adopted me at about 2 weeks. She got me when I was about 2 months old. So I've always said that I was one of the fortunate ones. My mom explains it by saying, nobody else got to choose their parents. Nobody else got to choose their kids, but I got to choose you. So I've always known that I was adopted from a really young age, had adoption day parties, plus a birthday party, plus Christmas. So, I was kind of living a life
Hey,
when I
that's
was younger.
cool.
Yeah, I loved it. So yeah, she adopted me at a really young age, and then obviously grew up in Kendleton. And I've kind of been a serial entrepreneur. And I'll fast forward to high school. I've kind of been a serial entrepreneur since high school. So I would say I was somewhat of the life of the party. Started throwing parties in high school, and I knew that I liked that part of it. And then I started charging like $2 to get in these parties. And
Are you kidding me? Is
it,
that really where you got your entrepreneurial start?
it
That's so
it
cool.
really started from throwing parties when we weren't supposed to. And I'll go ahead and put my one of my good friends on blast from high school. His name was Eric Miles, and his cousin name was Chris Miles. And their parents used to go out of town every now and then. And I knew I couldn't do it at
Oh,
my house. So we would throw parties at their house, charge $2 to get in, and it would be packed wall to wall. And then we'd pay somebody to come clean it up the next day like nothing ever happened. So that was my first bit of finding out that I could do this entrepreneur thing. So fast forward, I went to school, first went to Blinn to play football, and I quickly figured out that I wasn't big enough to play football. I'm about 5'6", so my stature did not match up with the 6'2" and 6'3" guys that I was trying to tackle. So I ended up getting my fifth
yep, I
concussion. Yeah,
understand.
yeah. So I ended up getting my fifth concussion. Went to a historically black college called Houston, Tillerson, and Austin. Went there. I mean, it was the best time of my life. I ran track there. Now, while I was in Austin, I continued to throw parties, right? So I started doing parties that I will never forget. This club called Spiro's in Austin. Made a lot of money doing that. Had a great time. Started doing some things that I really shouldn't have been doing. So from there, ended up coming back home, going into the military. And so I was actually in the military for 6 years. And I can kind of say that that's what started to change the trajectory of where I would end up after I got that experience of being in the military. From there, got out, and then I started being in the guard. I started, working odd jobs here and there, trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do, just finding my way through life, right? And I ran into this guy, and this guy just happened to be my brother-in-law. His name was Jason Bubenek, and he was like, "Hey, you should get into oil and gas. I'm doing it. I'm working for Fluid Daniel. I'm doing this and that." And I called a few people that I knew, and with his help, I ended up at Fluid Daniel. and I found my place in oil and gas. Kind of moved around a little bit. Ended up at Worley Parsons. I was the HSC supervisor after I graduated from college, and I was ended up being the youngest HSC supervisor in the company at that time. So
Oh,
it was
wow.
great. I was living a life. I started making six figures all of a sudden, and I was early 20s, and we had our son. My wife was at home. It was I was living. I was on my high horse, I guess you could say. And then,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I was on a project one day and I showed up to the project the same way I did every day. And the guy walked in and he said, the project's going to be shut down. And I was thinking in my head, okay, when you say the project's going to be shut down, maybe for the day, maybe until the next day. He was like, no, we're laying everybody off. So, yeah, so I kind of
Oh.
packed my bags that day, went home. I was in corporate, went home, kind of told my wife what was going on. And from there on out, I was just like, what am I gonna do? I got a kid at home. We were thinking about getting baby number two going, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. So a few days, and I know I'm like deep diving into this. So stop me whenever.
No,
Yeah,
no, this is
yeah.
good because I have so many questions about all
Yeah,
of
yeah.
it, so go
So,
for it.
I get home a few days later, and one of my really good friends, still my friend to this day, one of the best coaches that I know, he called me and he says, "Hey, T, you at home?" And that's what my friends call me.
Oh, hold on, you gotta
Yeah,
give him
yeah,
a shout out, you
yeah.
gotta say who it is because he
Yeah,
is one of the best
you know
coaches.
him. So, D Jack, aka Darnell Jackson, aka one of the best receivers to come out of Terry High School, which is where I went, just so happened to be. But yeah, Darnell calls me. He's like, "You home?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm home." He was like, "Man, did you graduate? Did you get your degree?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got my degree." He was like, "Bro, I'm about to make a move. Nobody knows. I'm about to start coaching in high school, going to Terry." And I was like, "Okay, cool." I mean, literally, everybody knew that Darnell was going to be one of the best coaches that we knew. He's always been good with the kids. He's from the community. So I literally just thought he was
Mhm.
telling me that he was leaving the school to go to Terry. Finally, our alma mater. He was like, "You should try to get my job at George. I think you'll be good with the kids." I was like, "Man, I don't know." A few days later, I go to the school, and it just so happens that my old science teacher, Miss McDowell, I love her to death, um, was the assistant principal there at the time. And we spent a little time together. She kind of asked me a few questions. I got to participate in the dodgeball game that same day, and it just like everything just fit. Yeah, it was
Oh,
weird.
that's
It was like
cool.
everything just fit. Like it was like, all right, here I am. Let's do this thing. Next thing I know, she was like, "You have a job next year." And that's how I got into coaching. It wasn't on purpose. I never had aspirations to be a teacher. It was kind of one of those things that just kind of fell in my lap. But I always say God has a plan for you. You just have to keep walking that way, right? So that was kind of one of those things that just happened. Um, yeah. So
That's so crazy too to think about because at the same time that Darnell was trying to get you at George because he was moving on to Terry, I'm pretty sure my husband and him started, at
yeah, I think
Terry
so. I think
together.
so.
So, man, yeah, when I found out that Clark was going to Terry too, it was such a
Hmm.
rush of emotions of him getting to go back, like you said, to our alma mater, and we were so excited to be back
Yeah.
in the red track, and it was just so much fun to go back and be a part of that. So I'm so
Yeah,
glad
yeah. So
that
I
you
mean,
brought
it
that
was
up.
it was really a great experience, and I say really was a great experience. So obviously, you move 5 years forward. I'm no longer at Terry. I mean, at George. I apologize. And I'm doing my own thing, which I'm super super excited about. I started doing some speaking while I was at George, and I have to give Mr. Eric Nicolai a really really big shout out. He gave me my first paid speaking gig right there at George Junior High.
How did that come
Well,
about?
you know what it is? It's that story is super, super crazy. I'm one of those, I guess you could say I'm one of those big rah rah guys. Like, if you're talking to me, and this is basically how I talk all the time. This is not something that's made up. Stuart knows this. Clark, I'm saying Stuart. Clark knows this.
Yeah, of
D-Jack
course.
knows this.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
everybody knows this. Like when you talk to me, I do the gestures. Like I talk with my hands. I'm real. I'm into it. Like every time anybody talks to me. Um, so one day, Mr. Nikolai walks out and he was looking for a kid. We were at football practice, and I don't know what happened that day. It was like one of those blah days for the kids. And as a coach, we can't have those days. I have to bring you back to reality and let you know that we're playing football. You're out here for a reason. Your parents are letting you stay after school for a reason. So it was just one of those really, really spirited talks, I guess you could say. And
Yep.
usually, you have a few coaches that'll tap you and say, "Hey, Mr. Nikolai's here. Watch out." Now, I'm not really one of those people that change up for anybody. You're always gonna get the same exact person. So I just kept going into my spiel. And so after it was over, Mr. Nikolai was like, "Hey, Coach Taylor, can I talk to you?" And I was like, "All right, here we go." I thought I was gonna get in trouble for yelling at the kid.
You're like, oh
Yeah,
God.
but it was the exact opposite. He was like, "I love what I just saw. I really want you to speak to the kids." And I was like, okay, I would love to. And at the time, just to come full circle, it's so crazy that people are put in your life and then you don't know how they'll be used. At the time, CA, Coach Cornelius Anthony, who's the head coach at Terry now, he was at Willow Ridge
Hmm.
as the defensive coordinator there. And me and him had formed a relationship over a few years because his wife, Michelle Anthony, was a teacher at George. And so we had, formed a really good relationship, and I didn't know how to approach, speaking in front of a bunch of kids. And, he was like, you need to take that day off because you'll get paid for it, and so on and so forth. And I was like, okay, how does this work? Well, CA, he's an accomplished speaker. He does this all the time. So I give him a call. I'm like, hey, I don't know how to approach this. So he really coached me up on everything that I should tell Mr. Nikolai I wanted, how I wanted to do it. We kind of sat down in my house. He drove to my house, sat down with me, said, this is how your speech should look, and literally gave me the game on how to get into this and how to start getting these paid gigs and do the whole thing. So, that was my first paid gig, was talking to the kids that I coached every day and I saw every day walking in the hall. So it was just an amazing experience to
Yeah.
kind of start at home. I mean, I went to George, and I guess I skipped that part, but I went to George, I went to Terry, I went to Navarro. And to be back in that same place, kind of giving somebody inspiration and telling them what I did and telling them how I got in trouble and, what they should be looking for and what they can do to get out of the place that they don't want to be in. It was just, man, it was just a surreal feeling. And so from there,
I feel like
yeah, go ahead.
real quick, sorry
No,
to
no,
cut
no
you off.
worries.
I feel like that is one of the best things about being from a small town and getting to go back to where you came from is that you you get to pass on
The
all of
Nuggets.
the I don't know, just knowledge. Yeah, the
Yeah,
tradition. The
yeah,
tradition, I think, is where it all comes back to. And I think that's one of the best things about being from a small town is that you get to go and watch other
exactly.
kids do all the traditions and all the cool stuff that you got to do. And so it's really fun to be a part of that.
Yeah, the crazy thing, and I know I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit, but I think of,
No, you're good.
as we have this conversation, I'm thinking about people that you don't necessarily think about every day that kind of had that impact on you. And when you say traditions, I have to throw in Timmy T, Coach Tim Takel. He had his ways. Everybody know he has his ways. He sometimes he wasn't the most easy person to get along with, but when I was younger, he had so many traditions that he would instill in every kid that came through. No matter if you agree with him or you didn't agree with him, Timmy T was always going to be about tradition. Whatever the class before you did, that next class was going to do. So, when you find yourself going back to coach, when I was coaching, I was doing some of those same things that he made us do. He used to come down to the junior high. He used to be like eyes, and we would all look at him like, what is he talking about? He did it at 6 year campus, eyes. All right. So when I came back, the first thing I did to the kids was I yelled eyes. They yelled eyes back, and it makes everybody in the room be quiet. So it's just small traditions like that you would see. Timmy T would be up at 5 o'clock in the morning out there telling the maintenance people to water the fields because he wanted to have the best fields in the district. And then fast forward to now, we see some of the coaches that were under him doing the same exact things. So, we can disagree with some of the things that people do, but there's always small little nuggets that they'll leave behind that you'll be able to use in the future.
Agreed. And I think also, too, a lot of that is that now you give those kids that see those traditions over and over and over again, you give them something
Hmm.
to look forward to. And then you make them feel like they're a part of a group. It's their tribe, it's their team. And you really
Exactly.
instill that pride in them because now they get to do the traditions that they've seen and not gotten to be a part of, but now they get to be a part of it. And I just,
Exactly.
that's my
Yeah, I
favorite thing
love it.
about that.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, I came back to Georgia and and it was great. I mean, I was there for 4.5, almost 5 years back back where I started. You know what I mean? I got to be with the kids that were coming from the elementary schools, feeding into Navarro, going into Georgia, and then continuing to help at Terry. I got to do that. So, even though it wasn't, I would say, I didn't know it was written in my book. It got to be a part of my story, right? So I
Yeah.
never intended on going to coach, but I was happy that I got to have that as a part of my story. So, I move on from there. And as I said in the beginning, I was a serial entrepreneur. So you can imagine I always had something going on while I was teaching, while I was coaching. So while I was there, I had a contracting company. I started a company called Tailor Made Contracting, to where I was doing simple stuff. I was doing floors. I was doing sheetrock. We were painting houses. I even
Okay.
had a go ahead.
Were you doing all that work, or you were hiring it out, or how were you fitting all that in?
If I could do it, I would, but for the most part, I was definitely hiring it out. I was
Okay, okay.
I developed a talent to find talent, I guess you could say. So I
Mhm.
found people that were looking for work, and I started marketing myself as a person that could do the work. And I developed I had a crew, and I could send my crew out to do certain things. And, as long as it fit into what our parameters were, we would take care of it. So it just started being something that, I could market to the teachers. They knew that I had this company. I could market to people outside that knew that I had this company. I even started running porta potties.
Oh,
Anything.
wow,
Yeah,
okay.
it's crazy. So, people shun and turn a blind eye to these small things. But I was probably when I was running porta potties, I was probably making $5,000 a month doing porta potties. Like, and believe it or not, it's,
Wow.
it's, it's crazy. All while I was teaching. Um, so I had that company. Me and one of my best friends, Derek Wells, we started a company with one of our other good friends, Kim Lawson. We started a company called TWNL, that was Taylor Wells and Lawson, and it was a financial firm. They were both CPAs, and I was obviously just the voice of it. They didn't like to speak in front of crowds. I would get up, talk to people. So one of the first clients that we had Dexter, when he was in the league at the time. So
And he came from Terry.
he came from Terry, yeah. So we had him
Yep, yep.
under that regime where we would help, with any type of investments you had. We would make sure that your bills were paid. So that was kind of a cool gig. So it kind of helped me learn how to manage money a little bit more, even though I wasn't a CPA and they were. So I had that, and this was all after Showboys, which I didn't mention the name of that company, that party promotion company that we had. We used to call it Showboys, right? So if you wanted to come to the show, come see your boys.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things about you is you are so dang good at marketing, and it's just so much fun to watch you. It's so much
Yeah,
fun.
and I'm just, man, marketing. If I should have went to school for anything, it should have been for business and marketing. I got my degree in occupational safety and health, which absolutely has nothing to do with marketing. But I've always loved just getting out, finding the message that I want to put out, and then finding creative ways around putting that message out. Right. So it's basically what
Yeah.
what marketing is. Getting eyes on what you want them to get them on, and the important things, blocking the other stuff out and having people focus on one main thing, and that's your main goal. So that's, I've always been good at marketing. So, fast forward past all of that stuff, past all those businesses that I started, I found where I really, really wanted to be, and that was in real estate. And that's where we are now. And that's why I'm getting to talk to you, Melissa. One of the best podcasts out right now is because real
Thank
estate.
you.
Yeah, no, and I mean it. The reason I'm getting to be on a platform like this is because real estate changed my life. I can't speak more about real estate than I do already. It just is one of those things that I really fought against. My best friend, I mentioned him earlier, Derek Wells. He came to me. I would say he came to me almost 6 years ago now and said, "At, you need to be doing real estate." He was already in real estate, and I was like, "Bro, I don't want to do real estate. I don't want to be trying to find somebody a house and they not like it, and I'm running around doing all this stuff." But at the time, my
Mhm.
mind wasn't ready to switch over. My mom always says, and I love my mom to death, Sheila Taylor. She always says that God will make you uncomfortable when it's time for you to move around. And I had to wait for that uncomfortable feeling. But he won't make you uncomfortable
Oh.
until it's time for you to go. So
Oh, I have chills all over. That is so, so good. You're totally right
yeah, I
about
mean,
that.
and it was just amazing. So, I was in a comfortable state. I was just, I was living life. My kids are good. My wife is good. She's a nurse. We were making good money. I was coaching. I loved the kids, but I had to wait until it was my time. So all of that time that he was telling me, get in the real estate, it just wasn't my time. But when it was, and I jumped out, it was like in a 3 month time period, my entire life changed, and it was crazy.
I know. I actually remember, I don't even remember when this was, but when I reached out to you, I don't remember how this all came about, but I remember you telling me like, "Hey, not a lot of people know yet, but I'm going to do real estate full
Mhm.
time." And I was like,
Yeah,
"Holy crap,
yeah.
like, didn't you just start real estate?" That's so
Yeah, you
crazy.
know what, and a lot of people, including my family, they were nervous. You know what I mean? All of my coaching friends were like, "Is this something you really want to do?" Once I started telling people that I was going to do it, but I'm one of those big. I'm really big into planning out your future. Like I'm in my office right now. I'm looking at my wall. I have a vision board on there, and I've accomplished almost everything on that vision board except for about three things. So me and my wife, we're really big on planning out what you want your future to look like. And before I start telling people about things, I start putting things in place to make them happen. So by the time that I started telling people, hey, I'm not coming back next year. I'm going full time real estate. It was already done.
Right, right, yeah.
I already knew what I was doing. I already knew that I wasn't coming back to the school. I already knew that, that real estate was going to be taking over my life and I was going to be diving head first into it. I just didn't know that it was going to happen 3 months after
That's so
after I said that.
crazy.
Yeah, so because it went from, hey, at the end of this year, I'm just not going to renew. I'm not going to come back in August to, that year in December, I didn't go back after that. That's how crazy it was.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let me ask you this. How did you really realize that real estate was the thing and was the right path and like that's like what happened to make you go, "Yep, this is it. I love it."
Well, you know what? So for me, I had to do something that I really loved. Like I wasn't gonna ever do anything that I didn't like. That just didn't fit my personality, right? So whatever you find me doing, whatever people see me doing, it's something that I really like doing, right? When I was throwing parties, I really liked the crowd. I used to tell people I walked into a club or atmosphere where everybody was just hanging out, and I would look at it like a blank canvas. By the time I left that place, whether it be 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever time it was, you'll be able to say I painted the Mona Lisa, right? That's how
Oh,
I think
wow.
about life. So when I walk into something, I want to make sure it's something that I want to do. So with real estate, it just so happened that it combined everything that I was already doing that I appreciated. People, I love people. I love helping people figure out problems. I love hearing about their problems and then saying, okay, let's find a solution. People get down during the real estate process because a lot of people think it's so hard. Let's make this a light situation. Okay, what can we do? We're gonna get past this. And then, it I got to market myself and I was already doing the marketing thing. I was already speaking in front of people. And with this, I started to be able to do that on a larger scale. And then it was more money. So I was like, how can I won't say I love money, but I definitely like it a lot. So when
No,
you
you love it.
combine,
Yeah, we all love it.
yeah. So when you combine being able to speak, being able to interact with people, being able to make people happy, because who's more happy than a person that's buying their first home, their second home, buying their retirement home, and then also being able to make money at the same time. So it was the first time that I was in a place where it was everything that I wanted all in one. So that's how I really realized, okay, I need to figure out how I can make this a full time thing. And then I started doing every bit of research that I could. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I started following this guy
Mhm.
named Max Maxwell. I started asking, my best friend who had already been in real estate for the last 5 years, every question that I could. I started talking to people and showing up to meetups and, researching and just how can I be a better real estate agent? How can I get into the investing side? Because that's where the financial freedom came from more than the real estate agent side, and I deep dove and I would lock myself in my room until my wife came home and before I had to pick up the kids, and I would take an hour, 2 hours a day and just research, listen to podcasts, listen to people talk about where they started and where they are now. And that's kind of what, gave me the opportunity to say, okay, I can do this.
That's awesome. Okay, real quick, let's go back. I know we talked a little bit about how you are adopted. Tell me about that a little bit, but also the question I have surrounding it is, um, how do you think that affected you and your success up to now? Like do you think it had an effect on it, or do you like what was your mindset around that as you were growing up and you knew that?
Yes, I mean, I'll definitely start by saying I definitely think that it had an effect on my success now. I used to tell people all the time, especially when kids found out I was adopted. So when I was a teacher, I worked in IBC and PASS, which I'm pretty sure you're familiar with because Clark does the same thing. And we work with a lot of at-risk kids, right? So some of these kids are displaced. They don't know where their parents are. They can't live with their parents because of whatever situation happened. It's different situations. So I would tell them, with me, I was adopted. And they would be like, Coach Taylor, you weren't adopted. No, I was adopted. Right. So, with my success now, I think knowing that you're adopted, knowing that you won't necessarily ever or may not be able to find where your actual heritage came from. When I look at my kids, I do see me, but when my wife looks at them, she sees her brother, she sees her mom, she sees, a cousin that they look like. I don't see that. I just see me, right?
Right.
I don't have anybody else to compare it to. So for me, I've always said that there's a kid that didn't get to live this life because, fast forward to where we are now, we have another charity. And I know, you'll probably talk to Jessica about that. But my mom ended up adopting me because she had a stillborn baby. So a lot of people don't know this story. They know that I'm adopted. But they don't know exactly how it came about. So my mom was pregnant, went through a full term pregnancy. Um, One day woke up and, didn't feel her baby move, went into the hospital, had to, go through the process of having a baby that was stillborn. She goes through the
Oh
process of
man.
adopting me. And so now I'm put in a situation where they never got rid of any clothes that they had. They never got rid of, the crib that they had, the car seat that they had. So I'm actually, put into a life that wasn't actually meant for me. It was meant for somebody else. So now fast forward to being 32 years old, being pretty successful. I still tell my wife all the time that I feel like I have to live for two people. Like it's somebody that did not get to live this life. It's somebody that, that's looking down on us right now saying, man, I'm glad he's doing that podcast because I wish I could be doing that because I can't be on earth right now. I didn't get to see my first birthday. I didn't get to see the age of 30. I didn't get to see what my kids would look like with my wife. So I've always told people, like, I'm living for two people right now. You'll never understand it. So when people try to find what their why is, why they should be doing something, most people say, hey, I want to do it for my kids, but they got their kids when they were the age of 20. Hey, I want to do it for my mom. They didn't realize that they were
Mhm.
doing it for their mom until later on. Hey, I want to do this because of this. I've been having that on my mind my entire life. You know what I
Wow.
mean? And that comes from being adopted and knowing that somebody wasn't there and I'm in that place. And so I have to live up to it.
I am so glad that we are talking about this because it it's so powerful to hear you view it that way. I think a lot of times when, someone has to go through something like being adopted. Of course it was at 2 weeks, but when you grow up knowing that, oh, I was adopted. Okay, well, so why was I adopted? Where did I come from? What was the
Hmm.
issue with my birth mom and whatnot? I love that you don't see yourself as a victim of having to be adopted, but more as
Right.
like it's a huge blessing to you that you got an incredible mom that has taught you obviously so much about being an amazing human and a great provider for your family and all of those things. I'm so glad to hear that that's how it affected you.
Yeah, I mean it's so crazy because, you know, just to deep dive into my family a bit, my mom was one of the first people in our family to adopt, and now I have I think four adopted cousins. After my
Oh,
mom
wow.
adopted, everybody saw that it would be okay. they started saying, okay, let's see if this is a route that we could go. Whether they couldn't have kids or they tried to have kids, whatever the case may be. My mom, she was a bit of a pioneer because she wanted a child. She wanted a son. She went through the process and she got me, and it made it. It made other people see that, hey, Sheila did it, so we may be able to do this and be able to give somebody the same life that Sheila's giving Avery. So my mom is probably one of the strongest people I know. I'll just tell you that. And so when
For
people see
sure.
me, they literally see my mom. Our personalities, my wife will tell you. She sometimes I'll say something and she'll be like, okay, Sheila. Like that's how ridiculous our personalities are the same. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy.
That's so cool. Okay, so jumping back real quick to real estate, I actually
Hmm.
wrote down how long did it take you to feel successful and what contributed to that. But obviously, it was
Hmm.
really, really fast. I think you said 3 months. What do you
Yeah.
think contributed to that? Is it just that you really found the thing that you got to use your unique gifts and talents to serve others, or was there more to it? Tell me about that.
It well, so I think it's a combination of the two. I've always been of a servitude attitude. Like I've always wanted to. I feel better doing things for other people than I do for myself, right? So, my wife gets to benefit from this. My kids get to benefit from this. I have a big payday. I'd rather go buy my kids and my wife a pair of shoes that are matched than buying myself a $500 suit. That's kind of my thing.
Yeah.
And I've always tell my wife, I'm like, hey, we had a good week. Let's go to the mall. You want something? Okay, yeah. So that's kind of always been my thing. But on the outskirts of that, I think it was because I finally found something that I loved. Not that you can be in like with something and you can be in love with it, right? So there's a big
Mhm.
difference. I was in like with a lot of stuff. I was in like with being a contractor and having my crew go out and do stuff. I was in like with having porta potties and doing all that type of stuff. I was in like with even when we made the most money doing the TWNL. I was in like with that. I wasn't in love with it. So once I found something that I was in love with, I think that was the biggest key to me having success. And then, I've always been a bit of a rebel. Like I'm not going to do what everybody else is doing. I could care less. If you don't like me, that's up to you. But, once I started, what contributed the most to my success was I was able to be myself in this role. It was a lot of things that I did in the past where I wasn't able to be myself, or I had to like scale back a little bit. I couldn't be the gangster realtor. Like I wouldn't be able to wear that shirt back in the day. I wouldn't be able to say certain things as being a teacher. But in this role, it was my business. The people that wanted to do business with me, they like me. So why not present
Mhm.
myself to the world? So when I started doing videos and I was just me, I started posting videos on my YouTube and on my Instagram and just doing stories with me and my family. And, I didn't have to speak a certain way. I didn't have to dress a certain way. It was just so freeing that the money came, the success came, and it came quicker because I was able to be myself. Like I was able to be AT, the person that, somebody from Kendleton would know. And I was able to be AT, the person that somebody from the school district or from my corporate America world would know. I could mesh the two and just, be free in doing whatever I want to do with my business. So I think that's kind of what contributed to the success as well.
I love that you point that out, and, I have to say, I've had so many people ask me since I launched the podcast, "How do you make money? What are you doing to bring in an income with your podcast?" And so I have to it's really hard
Hmm.
sometimes to hold on to this value, but I know now that I'm doing what I am called to do and I'm supposed to do it, and I am doing my absolute best at trying to get through to people that they can do whatever they want to do. I know that I know it's coming. I know it's coming, and it's sometimes it's even hard for me to stick to it and know, like, okay, I know this is the thing. I know it's coming. I know God's got me.
Hmm.
Um, was there ever a time that you felt like, look, I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I know that, like, did you ever have a time where you struggled with, how do I put this? Knowing that you were on the right path, but you just not everybody could see it
Yeah,
yet.
no, absolutely. I think for me, I laugh because in the beginning when I first started this, and it's natural, right? The people that care about you are gonna be like, "Hey, are you okay?" Or "Are you sure you want to jump off this bridge that way?" Or "Are you sure you want to do this?" Um, I think for me, and I talk about the beginning because now everybody's like, "Man, Avery, you killing it. Keep doing real estate. Teach me about it." It's a little bit different now because now everybody's like, "Okay, he's been done teaching for almost a year. He hasn't gone and tried to find a job yet. He still has his house. His wife hasn't put him out yet." So it's a little bit different now because now they know, okay, I'm good. But in the beginning,
Right.
people were like, "Man, you don't need to leave. You don't need to step out, and you don't need to do this. You can do both of them at the same time." Because I know a lot of people that do it. Good friend of mine, Brandon Humphrey, he's a great
Uh-huh.
real estate agent. He does it at the same time as being a teacher. But in the beginning, what happened when I first stepped out, I think this was, I may have stepped out a little bit early, but it was just my time. Um, in month three, I had made a pretty good amount of money to where I felt like I would be able to sustain and be able to live for an extended amount of time. I had a goal in mind of how long I wanted to be able to live. And then when I stepped out, it didn't go exactly as planned, but what does in life, right? And so I was at a point where I was like, all right,
Right.
something needs to happen, or I'm gonna have to go back and find a job. And I would say this was at like month six. Me and my wife sat down and we talked, and it was right around that time that I got a call, and this guy was like, "Hey, I want to sell this house. Um, I just need some money. Don't want a lot for it. I just want to get out of it." And I was like, "Okay, so how much do you want for the house?" And when he said $27,000, I was like, "Okay, I need to find $27,000." I didn't have 27.
Oh, wow.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was crazy. I didn't have $27,000, so I was like, "What am I going to do to figure this out?" So I went to YouTube University and tried to figure out
Yep.
exactly how to make this deal work because I knew I needed it. I needed it. Um, and the crazy thing is how things line up. You never know exactly how they're going to line up. But I called a few people and I say, "Hey, I have this house. I want to sell it. We need to close quickly. 3 days." And I'm telling you, if it would have been another month that I had to go through without making the money that I needed to, I would have probably tried to find another job. I sold that house in 3 days, and I sold it for $47,000, and I never used a penny of my own money, and I made $20,000. And I was like, okay,
Holy cow. Okay,
yeah.
so that's the thing is like you stepped out, you knew like, "Hey, this is my thing, this is what I'm gonna do. I have this vision that I'm going to flip houses." And you just trusted that it was coming.
Hmm. I
Is that
mean,
right?
yeah, I literally, I had a little bit of a safety net, right? So I'm not gonna sit here and act like I didn't. I had a bit of a safety net, but
Right.
I knew that I didn't just want to be a real estate agent. That's what most people think that I do. Like that's what they think. Like, "Hey, Avery's a real estate agent. He must be selling houses to people. That's how he's living." The base of my income, the majority of my income is going to come from the investment side. That's flipping the houses, that's buying the houses, that's doing owner financing, that's leasing them out, that's rehabbing them, that's
Mhm.
wholesaling them. It's a gamut of things that I do on that side. And that was just an example of how quickly it can turn. So then you string along
Mhm.
about five of those deals, and then all of a sudden your wife is like, "Babe, did you just close another deal?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I did." And she starts to not say anything about, "Are we worried about money? Are we worried about this?" And then all of a sudden you say, "Okay, I made the right decision." You know what I mean? Um,
Right.
Whereas in the
Yeah.
beginning, everybody's nervous for you, and then in turn you start to get stressed, right? And then you're like, something has to happen. You're rushing the process, and then all of a sudden
Mhm.
you're back looking for a job instead of trusting what you do on a day to day, going through your process. I tell people all the time, make sure you look at your KPIs, your key performance indicators. That's what I did when I was in a rough patch. I went back and said, okay, what was working for me before this? Let me go back and start doing that over again. Watch, rinse, repeat. Use my key performance indicators, and then I'll make the money and I'll keep it coming in because I'll do that same process over and over again. So once I started doing that and once I started trusting myself, everything changed.
Yeah. Okay, so I know, Most of my listeners, I feel like, and I won't say that this hasn't been true for me too. I feel like they struggle with the fear of what other people will think, or that they don't have enough knowledge or experience to do the thing that they really want to do. And they feel like imposters, or you've heard of imposter syndrome, where it's kind of like you fake it till you make it.
Right, right.
Um, how would you suggest someone gets past that, or gets over themselves?
Well, so for me, I think, man, I'm such a, how can I say, I'm such an extrovert that I've had the periods of, okay, not knowing how I should approach it, but I've never had that period of being, not of saying, hey, I'm not going to do this because I don't know what everybody else is going to say. I know sometimes when I put out a video, people are like, Avery looks crazy. Right. I know sometimes I know sometimes when I talk to people, talk so fast that I'm like, okay, they're probably saying that I need to slow down. They don't understand what I'm saying. I know those things. So me, it's all about embracing it, you know, using the things that you know. In my videos, I'm like, if you're listening too slow, you need to speed up because I know I talk too fast. Right. So,
I love
yeah,
that.
I'm gonna play with it. I know that, when you see me, I'm gonna have a gangster Realtor shirt on, some shorts, some shoes. I'm gonna be comfortable, but I can handle my business. But I know that some people might not want to, want to get with that. I understand that. But I use those things to my advantages and I play with them. So that's I give myself up to that market. But as far as getting over it, I think it's all about doing. It's starting off smaller, starting off, being in groups of people that can actually motivate you to figure out how to do those things and how to help you get better. Whether that be a Toastmasters, whether that be a friend that, that wants you to read something at church, or whether that be, doing grace with your family at the kitchen table at night. That's a speaking engagement right there. Trying to get kids to be quiet and, your husband to listen or your wife to listen. That's an entire speaking engagement. Um, but for me, I would say the magic is in doing. Don't sit to the side. Don't sit down and say, you know, don't get analysis paralysis. I have a guy that I'm working with right now that I'm mentoring. He has analysis paralysis, and I tell him all the time, have you actually done any of these things that you've asked me about and I've told you about? He's like, well, I'm researching them. I want to make sure that I know how to do it. I didn't know how to do
Yep.
most of the things that I'm doing right now until I actually started doing them. So I would urge you not to get analysis paralysis. Get out, start doing, because the more you do, the more you learn, the better you get. And then all of a sudden you're teaching people how to do it, which is what I do all the time. So,
Yeah.
it's magic and it's power in doing. If you're not getting out, you
Right.
can't do anything.
Yeah, I love, of course, the cliche term of "Don't talk about it, be about it." Like,
Yeah, don't
just
talk
go
about it, be
do the
about it.
thing. Don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just got to get out there and do it. I love that. What do you? Okay, so you're super personable and you educate through your videos, which I love watching. I think they're great. What do you think is the most important aspect of your marketing efforts?
Oh man, the crazy thing is you said it. I think it's being personable. My marketing efforts are all about being a person that if you see me on the streets, you can talk to. I don't want to be a robot. I don't want to be too professional. I don't want to be too non-professional. I don't want to be that person that they're like, oh, I'm scared to speak to him because he may be this type of way. You have to be personable when you're marketing. A lot of people try to be too professional and it comes off as cheesy. It comes off as this person that's really, really
Mm-hmm.
trying to sell you something. I tell people all the time, I don't need to sell you a product because I actually don't have a product to sell. I just was with a client the other day. They like the house. And I'm like, you like this house? That's great. I don't, but I'm gonna teach you about the numbers. I don't have to worry. That's not my gig is not liking the house because a house is personal preference. But I want to teach and I want to make sure that my clients know exactly what they're looking for. But when I speak to them, they're gonna know it's genuine because I'm gonna speak to them as if we were best friends, as if we were having this conversation on the phone. I'm not going to speak to you in analytical terms that you won't understand because I'm trying to sell you a house and I'm trying to make it sound like I know all these big words.
Right.
So being personable, being a person that somebody can call and be like, okay, I feel comfortable talking to AT. I feel comfortable talking to Avery because I know he's going to keep it real. If you have expectations to pay a certain amount, and you're looking at a $300,000 house and you want to pay 1,200 bucks, most realtors are gonna be like, all right, let's see what we can work with, and then they're gonna have you in a situation where you're not
Uh-huh.
paying what you want to pay. I'm gonna say you can't get this house. It costs way too
Right.
much, and I'm telling you this as your friend, because if you call your best friend right now, and you tell them what you want to pay, and they have the knowledge that I know about houses, they will tell you the same exact thing because my best friend would to me. So that's my biggest
Right.
thickness, especially with videos. When you look at my videos, I'm like, what's going on? It's your boy, AT Sold and AT Closing. You know what I can get in the voice. But it's personable. I feel
Yeah,
like I'm speaking directly to somebody when I do these things. So it's all
I
about
love that.
putting your personality on it, adding personal touch, and making sure that people can connect to it in a real way.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, so I know that most of the time women actually get asked this question, but I know that you and your wife are so super busy. Your wife is a nurse and she has her own charity, and I know you're on the board for that. So I know you guys are so super busy. How do you guys make all of it work and do all the things with kids?
Well, that is a amazing question. I'll tell you that right now. That is an amazing question. Not that I think so many people go through it, but they don't talk about it. I
Mhm.
think me and Jessica, aka J Boo, right? So I think we have a really, really good balance between the two. We spend a lot of time together, not on purpose. So, even we just had a long tournament with my son. He plays baseball. He's on a select team. He does all of this. But we will take a second, even in a moment like that, just to cuddle. I'm real big on PDA, so you don't have to be like me, but I'm real big on PDA. Like we'll just take a second to cuddle, take a second to be like, I love you, take a second, give me a quick kiss. It's important because when people are really, really busy, they say, hey, we don't have those moments where we can just be us, but you can find those moments even in the busy times. Um, but also, we know that our kids go to school. My wife's a nurse, so she works 3 days a week. I have a schedule that's pretty, pretty flexible. So even on a day like today, it's gloomy. We may say, hey, let's go to a movie. Let's go do this. And it's a lot of spur of the moment things. But I also think, and this may be me as a male, I think it's driven by what we want to see in our relationship. I like to see spontaneity. So, me, I will plan a trip to Austin and say, hey, I booked us this trip. I found us a babysitter. All you got to do is pack your bag. Or, we going to the Bahamas for our anniversary. I booked that trip and I didn't even tell her, hey,
Oh my gosh, and those pictures were so good.
yeah. So it's those type of things, and I'm not saying to do them on a grand scale like that, but the other day she was at work. I ordered her some flowers. I sent them to work. The same day I got flowers for my daughter. So when I picked her up from daycare, I gave her some flowers. It just works out
Aw.
to where you do the things that you want to see done to you, and I think for us, it's about understanding how the other person wants to be loved. So I would suggest to everybody right now that's listening to this, go get this book called The Five Love Languages. Um,
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. That's
yes,
such a
yes.
good book. Oh, yeah, great test to take. It's so good.
Great test to take. The five love languages. If you're having problems, it might help you out. And I'm not saying it'll save anything, but it'll help you understand how your spouse wants to be loved, right? And don't get me on this soapbox, but I know my wife, she loves acts of service. She wants me to clean up, she wants me to wash some dishes, she wants me to do, pick up the kids when she doesn't ask me to. So I try to do those things as much as I can. Now I probably need to work on it more, but you need to love your spouse how they want you to love them. And so I think that's
Yes.
important because even in the busy times, you know, we'll get home. Aiden has a baseball tournament. Aaliyah has dance. She has to go to work the next day, and I'll start cooking and I'll start cleaning up the kitchen. Those things are important, even sometimes more than being able to spend the time going out and having drinks and doing that type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think it's like you're acknowledging that there's a ton of things that have to get done before y'all can go to bed. And if you are hanging out just waiting on someone else to do it, it piles on that stress. But if you can take the initiative and like be a team member and a partner the way that is it is intended, then it relieves stress for everyone across the board and you both get to go to bed happier and
Exactly.
and and more together, more connected.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time, it's always been an old adage that says happy wife, happy life. So I've switched it up because, we live in the 21st century now.
Hmm.
Everybody wants to be happy. So it's happy spouse, happy house.
Oh,
You know,
I love that.
yeah, yeah, we all got to be happy. We all have to get something out of this piece of the pie.
Amen. I love that so much. Oh, good. Okay, cool. Let's do a really quick rapid fire because I know I've kept you on here for a while. What
No,
is
I
a
love it.
book? What's a book, article, person, or talk that's changed your life?
Ooh, book, article, person to talk. I would say, man, I have a few, but I'll start off by saying this guy named Max Maxwell. I met him one time. He does a lot of pop ups all around the nation. But when I first got into real estate, outside of my best friend Derek and outside of one of my other best friends, um, uh, Everett Evans, he was kind of one of those inspirational people because a lot of people say they need mentors. I don't really necessarily believe in mentors, but I do have mentors that don't even know they're my mentors, right?
Uh
So
huh.
somebody like him, he was doing exactly what I wanted to do. He laid out the blueprint of how to do it. All I had to do was look at what he did and then apply it to my own self. So without him even meeting me, because he probably won't ever remember me. But without him ever meeting me, without him personally being in my space, this guy lives in North Carolina, and I use him because you can find inspiration and mentors anywhere. So I would say Max Maxwell right now at this moment.
I love that too. And you're saying that he's your mentor, but he lives in North Carolina. I think that's huge to think about. Is that the more we put ourselves out there, and the more we are visible to people, we can gain the opportunity to be a mentor to someone that is not in our immediate circle, someone that's far away. But we got to be able to put ourselves out there so that those people can find us and get the information out of us,
Exactly.
so far away from each other.
Exactly.
Okay, what is your favorite Friday night at home with your family?
Oh, my favorite Friday night is honestly being outside.
Ooh.
My kids are really big on being outside. I grew up in the country, like I'm a big country boy, right? So now that we live in a neighborhood, we live in a cul-de-sac. My favorite Friday night being at home is more than likely to being in the garage with the radio on, blasting, having my kids outside. My daughter's probably gonna be drawing something on the driveway. My wife's probably gonna be sitting down or yelling at the kids to get out of the street. My son's gonna have a baseball glove on, bringing me my glove every 10 minutes if I'm cooking or something, and wanting to throw me a baseball. And those times I get to just sit back for a second, look at my surroundings, see my kids running around, see my wife because she's beautiful. If you guys have not seen my wife, and
She's
it
gorgeous.
just gives you a moment of clarity. Like, man, I've been fighting for a long time to have a life like this, and now to finally see it come true. um, that's just one of my favorite things. I live in the clouds a lot, right? So I dream, I daydream. I will drive down the street to go look at a house that I've always wanted, and I'll just sit in front of it. So that's one of those moments. It's like you're daydreaming, but you're in real life.
Yeah,
So I love those
yes,
moments.
you can't see me, but I'm, like, shaking my head, I got tears in my eyes. It's so incredible to be able to look around and say, "Man, this is what I always wanted. This is what I've been working for." I
Exactly.
love that so much. Okay, tell us, what was your dream job as a kid?
Man, that's crazy. So my dream job never ever had anything to do with sports. I know most people's dream jobs have to do with, well, I mean, I guess it did have to do with sports, but it wasn't me physically playing a sport. My dream job was to be a physical therapist, right?
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
yeah, so I had already always told my mom, I'm like, I'm gonna buy you a truck, and the way I'm gonna get this truck is I'm gonna be a physical therapist, and I'm gonna start my own physical therapy clinic, and I'm gonna do all of this stuff, and all of that got derailed my first year in college when I started taking anatomy and physiology. I could tell you right there, my entire career track changed. When I when I got in that class, I was like, I called my mom. I'm like, hey, so I'm not gonna be a physical therapist because I'm not gonna pass this class.
Oh
And
my god, that's hilarious.
yeah, so that was like my dream. I was, at the time, I mean, it was as young as the Oilers being in Houston. I was like, I'm gonna work for the Oilers, I'm gonna be a physical therapist. And then when the Texans came, I'm like, I'm gonna be with the NFL being a physical therapist. And yeah, I think a part of that had to be with I have twin cousins that are really, really successful. They've been in the Forbes top 10 book sales for the last like 6 months. And one of them is a physical therapist. And he actually owns two clinics now called Sterling Physical Therapy. Well, he was in college and, I've always looked up to them, and he was going to school to be a physical therapist. And I think I just saw him all the time that I started to emulate him because I don't have brothers. I don't have all of that. So just seeing what he was doing maybe drove me to that point until I started taking that class.
Oh man. Oh man. Yep. Nope. I it's funny that you say that. I actually loved A&P. I think it's so fascinating. But I'll say real quick, while I was in A&P, I always every time we would learn about some new process or system in the body, I would just be in awe, like, holy cow, things really have to work perfectly in our bodies every day to keep us
Yeah.
alive. And I just think, like, man, if you have never taken an A&P class, or you don't believe that living every day is a miracle, take A&P. You will
Oh yeah.
realize real
Yeah,
fast
you will. And
that
then
it
you will
is.
realize how much you do not know about the body.
Uh-huh.
And then I respect every nurse, every doctor, every physical therapist because my wife can rattle off so many fun facts about the body. The only thing I know is that we have phalanges, which are fingers.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
That's my fun fact. That's my medical
Oh,
fun fact for the day.
that's so great. Okay, real quick, best advice to help our listeners live with audacity.
Man, best advice is to be the best you. Find out what that is. And it's an old cliche. People always say, find your why. But it rings so true in today's society when there's so much white noise and so much going on the outside of your normal everyday life, especially for our younger kids. And I know they may not be listening to this, but if you can find it early and you can find your own path and you start to follow that early, just man, it's so important to fight for who you are. And when I say fight for who you are, it's so many people that are gonna come into your life and they're gonna try to change your path. They're gonna try to change you into what they think you should be. They're gonna try to change you into a person that may not even be good for this society. But I think it's so, so important for people to fight for who they are, stand up for your beliefs. And I don't care if you're a person that thinks that blue is green. If you think it that, wholeheartedly fight for it. You know,
Right.
because me, I found that really, really early that I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew whatever I did, it was going to be but for the benefit of my family, for myself, and it was going to be something that I was going to believe in at the end of the day. Now, was it going to make me money? I wasn't sure. But I always had a dream, and I tell my wife about this all the time. To this day, I had a dream that I was going to be standing in front of a crowd, talking to people, and right before I woke up, all I remember that it was a big applause. I can't tell you what I said. I can't tell you what I was doing. I can't tell you what I was talking about, but I can tell you now that that has come true, maybe 6 to 10 times.
Oh, wow.
So it's about having that dream, fighting for it, and being the person that you've always wanted to be.
That's so awesome. I am so, so glad that you came on today. And our conversation really makes me realize that, dude, I want you to be my mentor and I want to hang out with you guys
Let's
so
do
much
it.
more. Yeah, for sure. Okay, awesome. So tell everybody where they can find you to get more information just about you or the services that you offer, things like that.
Yeah. So check me out. I'm really easily accessible. AT sold it, AT closed it. If you type that in Google, I'm pretty sure you'll find me. My number is 832-338-9202. I know usually people don't give it out, but I blast mine. So holler at me if you ever need my services. I'm one of those people. You can go to my website, it's tmadegroup.com. Visit me on Facebook, man. Tailor Made Motivation is my Facebook. Instagram is Tailor Made Motivation. Holler at me if you want to talk to me. Trust me, I will get back to you. If you have a question, trust me, I will answer your question. And I've always ended everything that I do with AT sold it, AT closed it. Holler at you, boy, when you see me in the streets.
Did you love this episode of the Live with Audacity podcast as much as I did? I know you did. So if that's true, please head on over to iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts, subscribe, leave me a review. Please let me know how I'm doing, and I hope to see you next week. Bye.